1. Let me tell you about this sweet 1965 AMC Rambler that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $11,900. This classic beauty is a real gem, and I'm genuinely excited to share the details with you. The seller says it's in good condition, and from what I can see, it looks like they're not exaggerating. This Rambler America 440h is rocking a clean title and runs excellently. Music to any classic car lover's ears. Under the hood, you've got a trusty 6-cylinder 232cc engine paired with an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive. Now get this, the AC blows cold, and the heater works too. That's a big deal for a car this age, folks. Plus, it's got power steering, which makes cruising in this vintage ride a breeze. The odometer shows 58,945 miles, which isn't too shabby for a car that's been around since LBJ was in the White House. I've got to be honest with you, while this Rambler sounds like it's in pretty good shape, always remember that with classic cars, there might be some quirks or issues that aren't immediately apparent. It's always a good idea to give it a thorough inspection or have a mechanic take a look before you commit. But overall, if you're in the market for a piece of American automotive history that's been well maintained and is ready to hit the road, this 1965 AMC Rambler could be your ticket to classic car bliss. Just imagine the heads you'll turn cruising down Main Street in this bad boy. 2. We're looking at a real interesting piece, a 1973 Ford Maverick that's currently up for grabs at $10,990. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill Maverick, folks. This is a project car with some serious potential. The seller's got it listed in good condition, and while it's not fully finished, it sounds like it's got a lot going for it. Let's break it down. This bad boy is rocking a monster 460 Ford engine with a fresh aluminum intake and brawler 4V carb. That's a whole lot of power in a compact package. It's paired with a C6 transmission, so you know it can handle all that muscle. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This Maverick's been upgraded with power rack and pinion steering and 4-wheel disc brakes. That's a big improvement over the original setup, giving you much better control and stopping power. It's sitting pretty on Magnum 500 wheels wrapped in excellent BFG tires. Inside, you've got new bucket seats, door panels, and carpet. The odometer shows 100 miles, which I'm guessing is since the rebuild. It's sporting a clean title and a green paint job, though the seller doesn't mention the condition of the paint. Here's the honest truth. While it runs, drives, and stops nicely, this is still a project car. There's likely more work to be done to get it fully finished. But for the right person, this could be an awesome opportunity to own a unique, powerful classic with a lot of the hard work already done. If you're looking for a turnkey classic, this might not be your cup of tea. But if you're willing to put in some elbow grease to finish off what sounds like a pretty cool build, this 73 Maverick could be a real gem. Just make sure you know what you're getting into before you take the plunge. 3. We're taking a look at a real piece of American luxury history, a 1983 Cadillac Seville Biarritz. This classic is currently up for grabs at $3,250, and let me tell you, it's got some stories to tell. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks, this isn't a turnkey ride. The seller's honest about its current state. It doesn't run at the moment, but it does start up with some starting fluid. They're thinking it's probably just the fuel pump, which, if true, isn't the end of the world for a DIY mechanic or a reasonable repair bill. But let's talk about what this caddy has going for it. First off, it's a one-owner car with only 91,000 original miles. That's pretty low mileage for a 41-year-old vehicle. The body is described as beautiful and, importantly, rust-free. Inside, you're looking at a great blue leather interior, which is a hallmark of Cadillac luxury. The seller mentions that the paint is faded in some spots, which is to be expected for its age. But they insist that even at 41 years old, this Seville is still a looker. It's all original, including the 4100 engine, and the original wheel and hubcap are tucked away in the trunk. Now, I've got to be honest, the 4100 engine has a bit of a reputation for issues, so that's something to keep in mind. But for the right enthusiast, this could be an amazing project car. It's got a clean title, and according to the seller, it doesn't need much to get it road ready. If you're in the market for a classic luxury car project and you're not afraid of a little work, this 1983 Cadillac Seville Biarritz could be a real gem. Just remember, you'll need to factor in the cost of at least a fuel pump, and possibly some other repairs to get it running smoothly. But with its low mileage and good bones, this could be a fantastic opportunity to own a piece of Cadillac history. 4. We're looking at a real piece of automotive history, a 1949 Dodge Coronet. This beauty is currently on the market for $8,000, and let me tell you, it's got some stories to tell. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. There's a bit of a discrepancy here. The seller has it listed as like new condition, but given it's a 74-year-old car, we need to take that with a grain of salt. That said, it sounds like this Coronet has had some serious love and attention recently. Let's break it down. This is a two-owner car, which is pretty impressive for its age. It's the first year of the Coronet model, making it a rare find indeed. The seller's right. You don't see many of these on the road anymore. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This Coronet has had some significant work done recently. We're talking freshly reupholstered seats, a new radiator, new radial tires, and new hubcaps. The transmission has been freshly rebuilt, and the wiring has been redone. That's a lot of new for a car from 1949. The odometer shows 70,000 miles, but on a car this old, it's hard to say if that's original. It's sporting a blue paint job and has a clean title. Interestingly, it's listed as having a 4-cylinder engine and an automatic transmission, which is unusual for this model. Typically, they came with a 6-cylinder and a manual. So that's something you might want to clarify with the seller. Now it's not all perfect. The seller mentions it needs new plug wires, so there's still some work to be done. And remember, even with all the recent updates, this is still a 74-year-old car. It's going to have quirks and will likely need ongoing maintenance. But for the right enthusiast, this could be a fantastic opportunity. If you're looking for a piece of late 40s Americana that's had a lot of recent work done, this 1949 Dodge Coronet could be your ticket. Just make sure you're ready for the challenges that come with owning a classic car of this age. And hey, the seller says they're moving and need it gone, so there might be some wiggle room on that price. 5. We're checking out a real gem from the late 60s, a 1968 AMC Javelin SST. This classic muscle car is currently up for grabs at $15,000, and let me tell you, it's got some serious potential. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller's description is pretty brief, but what they do say sounds promising. This Javelin is packing a 290 V8 engine under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. That's a solid powertrain combo for this model, offering a nice balance of performance and drivability. The seller states that it runs and drives good, and everything is working well. That's always good to hear with a classic car. But remember, good is subjective when we're talking about a vehicle that's over half a century old. It's always wise to inspect thoroughly or have a mechanic take a look before making a decision. The odometer shows 50,000 miles, but on a car this age, it's hard to say if that's original or if it's rolled over. It's sporting a clean title, which is definitely a plus. What's intriguing about this Javelin is its potential. The SST was the top-of-the-line trim for the Javelin in 1968, so this could be a really nice example of AMC's entry into the pony car market. These cars aren't as common as Mustangs or Camaros from the same era, which makes them stand out at car shows and cruise nights. However, I've got to be honest. The lack of detail in the seller's description leaves a lot of questions unanswered. What's the condition of the body and paint? How's the interior holding up? Has any restoration work been done? These are all things you'd want to know before making a decision. For $15,000, you're looking at a piece of American muscle car history that's not as common as some of its contemporaries. If you're a fan of AMC or just looking for something a bit different from the usual muscle car crowd, this 1968 Javelin SST could be a great find. Just make sure you do your due diligence, ask plenty of questions, and maybe bring along a knowledgeable friend or mechanic when you check it out. 6. We're taking a look at a classic piece of American sports car history, a 1980 Chevrolet Corvette C3. This beauty is currently on the market for $15,000, and let me tell you, it's got some interesting features that might just pique your interest. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller is parting with this car due to health issues, which is always a bittersweet situation. But it sounds like they've taken good care of this Feta during their ownership. Let's break it down. This C3 is packing a 350 L48 V8 engine, which was a solid power plant for its time. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which might not be every purist's cup of tea, but it does make for easier cruising. The odometer shows 120,000 miles, which isn't too bad for a 43-year-old car, especially if it's been well maintained. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This Corvette comes with some cool features like power windows, door locks, and cruise control. Not always a given for cars of this era. It's sporting glass-mirrored T-tops, which is a quintessential C3 feature that really lets you enjoy open-air driving. The seller mentions new tires and wire wheels with spinners, which could give it a really sharp look. The body is white, and the seller describes the overall condition as good. However, keep in mind that good can be subjective, especially with a car of this age. It's always wise to inspect thoroughly or have a mechanic take a look before making a decision. One thing to note: the seller mentions too many extras to list, which definitely piques my curiosity. It might be worth giving them a call to get the full rundown on what all has been done to this Corvette. For $15,000, you're looking at a piece of Corvette history from the tail end of the C3 generation. These cars have a distinctive style that really captures the essence of late 70s, early 80s automotive design. If you're a fan of this era of Corvettes, or just looking for a classic American sports car with some unique features, this 1980 C3 could be worth checking out. 7. We're checking out a real classic from the 70s, a 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix. This beauty is currently up for grabs at $8,000, and let me tell you, it's got some interesting history and features that might just catch your eye. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. This isn't a showroom-perfect car, but it sounds like it's got a lot going for it. Let's break it down. First off, we're looking at a two-owner car with about 138,000 miles on the clock. That's a fair amount of mileage, but here's where it gets interesting. The motor was rebuilt about 40,000 miles ago, and they threw in a mild cam for a little extra oomph. We're talking about a 400 cubic inch V8 with a 4-barrel carb. That's a lot of American muscle right there. The seller's been putting some work into this Grand Prix. We're talking newer radiator, power steering, brakes, and battery. That's always good to hear on a car of this vintage. The transmission is automatic, which makes for easy cruising. Now let's talk about the cosmetics. The car was painted years ago, so it might not be in pristine condition. The interior, however, sounds pretty decent. The seller mentions a great headliner and dash, with good seats. That's not bad for a nearly 50-year-old car. There are a couple of areas that need attention. The seller mentions it could use a trunk pan and some weather stripping. That's something to keep in mind if you're considering this car. But here's the kicker. The seller says it runs and drives great, and they'd be confident driving it across the country tomorrow. That's a pretty bold statement for a car of this age, and it suggests that mechanically, this Grand Prix is in solid shape. For $8,000, you're looking at a piece of 70s American luxury muscle. These Grand Prix were big, comfortable cruisers with plenty of power under the hood. If you're into this era of cars and don't mind a project or two to get it perfect, this could be a real gem. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. But with some TLC, this 73 Grand Prix could be a real head-turner at car shows or just cruising down the boulevard. 8. We're taking a look at a piece of 80s automotive history, a 1985 Chevrolet Corvette. This C4 Vet is currently up for grabs at $7,500. And let me tell you, it sounds like it might be a pretty sweet deal for the right buyer. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller describes this Corvette as being in excellent condition, and while that's promising, We always need to take that with a grain of salt on a nearly 40-year-old car. That said, let's break down what we know. This blue beauty is packing the classic Corvette V8 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. The odometer shows 89,000 miles, which isn't too bad for a car of this age. The seller says it runs and drives perfectly, with a new battery and spark plugs just installed. That's always good to hear. One of the coolest things about this Vette is its versatility. It comes with a hard top roof, a glass roof, and it's also a convertible. That's like getting 3 cars in one. It's perfect for whatever mood you're in or whatever the weather's doing. Now, it's not all perfect. The seller mentions that it needs seat covers, which they estimate at about $350. That's something you'll want to factor into your budget. Also, they're selling because they don't have a garage to properly store it, which suggests this Corvette might benefit from being kept undercover. On the plus side, it's registered as a classic, which means registration is only needed every 5 years. That's a nice little perk that can save you some hassle and money in the long run. For $7,500, you're looking at a piece of 80s sports car history. The C4 Corvettes are starting to gain more appreciation among collectors, and this one sounds like it's in pretty good shape overall. If you're into this era of Vettes and don't mind addressing the seat covers, this could be a fun weekend cruiser or a good starting point for a more serious restoration. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. But with some TLC, this '85 Corvette could be a real head-turner at car shows or just cruising down the highway. 9. We're looking at a real gem from the 70s, a 1977 Lincoln Continental Town Coupe. And let me tell you, this isn't just any Continental. We're talking about an extremely rare glass-top model. The seller's asking $4,900 for this beauty, and I've got to say, that price is grabbing my attention. Now let's break this down. Under the hood, you've got the Big Daddy 460 cubic inch V8 engine. That's a lot of American muscle, folks. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which is perfect for cruising and luxury. The seller's been putting some serious work into this Continental. We're talking brand new tires, a rebuilt and sealed gas tank, a professionally rebuilt carb, new alternator, new regulator, and a brand new professionally installed headliner. That's a lot of new in that list, which is always good to see on a classic car. One of the coolest features of this Continental is that glass top. The seller says it's in perfect condition with 0 cracks. That's pretty rare for a car of this vintage. They've also got those sweet forged aluminum rims, which were a high-end option back in the day. Now, I've got to be honest with you. This isn't a perfect show-ready car. The seller mentions they've removed the chrome trim to begin body and paint work. So, if you're handy with body and paint, or know someone who is, this could be a fantastic project car. The interior is described as beautiful and original, which is great news. All the power features are said to be working. Windows, seat, antenna, and even the radio and tape player are functioning. That's not always a given with cars from this era. With 73,000 miles on the odometer and a clean title, this Continental sounds like it's got plenty of life left in it. The seller says it can be driven anywhere, which suggests it's mechanically sound. For $4,900, you're looking at a piece of 70s luxury car history with some really unique features. If you're into this era of American cars and don't mind putting in some work on the body and paint, this could be a real diamond in the rough. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. But with some TLC, this '77 Continental could be a real head-turner at car shows, or just cruising down the boulevard. 10. We're looking at a real piece of American automotive history, a 1964 Ford Thunderbird. This classic beauty is currently up for grabs at $12,000, and let me tell you, it's got some stories to tell. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. There's a bit of a discrepancy here. The seller's detailed description paints a pretty rosy picture, but the condition is actually listed as fair in the basic details. That's something we need to keep in mind as we go through this. Let's break it down. Under the hood, you've got a 390 V8 engine with a 4-barrel carburetor, supposedly pushing out 300 horsepower. That's a lot of American muscle. It's paired with Ford's Cruise-O-Matic automatic transmission, which should make for smooth cruising. The odometer shows 80,000 miles, which isn't bad for a car that's nearly 60 years old. It's sporting its original white paint, which the seller says shows some signs of age, but retains its original charm and patina. That could mean anything from a few chips to some serious fading, so you'd want to see it in person. Inside, the seller claims the original upholstery is well preserved with no significant tears or damage. They mention bucket seats, power steering and brakes, and even a working original AM radio. All of this sounds great, but remember, the condition is listed as fair, so take these claims with a grain of salt. One thing to note, this T-Bird has been living in Southern Oregon, which could be good news in terms of rust prevention, depending on how it's been stored. For $12,000, you're looking at a piece of 60s Americana. The fourth-generation Thunderbirds are known for their sleek, jet-age styling, and this one sounds like it could be a good candidate for either preservation or restoration, depending on its true condition. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. Given the discrepancy between the detailed description and the listed condition, I'd strongly recommend a thorough in-person inspection before making any decisions. But if everything checks out, this '64 Thunderbird could be a real head-turner at car shows or just cruising down the highway. 11. We're looking at a real gem from the early 60s, a 1962 Studebaker. This classic beauty is currently up for grabs at $15,000, and let me tell you, it sounds like it might be a pretty sweet ride for the right buyer. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller's description is pretty brief, but what they do say sounds promising. Let's break it down. First off, we're looking at a white exterior with a red interior, a classic color combo that never goes out of style. The seller claims it's in excellent condition all around with no rust, which is a big deal for a car that's over 60 years old. If true, that's a major plus. Under the hood, we've got a factory Paxton 289 V8 engine. For those who might not know, Paxton was known for their superchargers, so this could be a pretty potent power plant. It's paired with a 2-speed automatic transmission, which was typical for the era. Now here's where it gets interesting. This Studebaker has some modern upgrades that could make it a great daily driver. We're talking vintage AC, which is a nice touch if it works well, power steering and 4-wheel disc brakes. Those disc brakes are a significant upgrade from the original drum brakes, offering much better stopping power. The 17-inch wheels with baby moons are another modern touch that could give this classic a unique look. The seller mentions they're a mechanic, which is always good to hear when buying a classic car. They say it runs and drives great, which suggests it's been well maintained. For $15,000, or best offer, you're looking at a piece of American automotive history that's not as common as your typical Ford or Chevy from the same era. Studebakers have a unique style that really stands out, and this one sounds like it's been updated in some key areas to make it more drivable in modern traffic. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. It would be wise to give it a thorough inspection before making a decision, paying special attention to those upgrades to make sure they've been done properly. But if everything checks out, this '62 Studebaker could be a real head-turner at car shows or just cruising down the boulevard. 12. We're taking a look at a big, beautiful piece of 70s American luxury, a 1975 Ford Thunderbird. This silver stunner is currently up for grabs at $6,000, and let me tell you, it's got some features that might just pique your interest. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller's description is pretty bare bones, but what they do tell us is intriguing. Let's break it down. First off, under that long hood, we're looking at a massive 460 cubic inch V8 engine. That's 7.5 liters of pure American muscle, folks. These engines were known for their smooth power delivery and torque that could pull a house off its foundation. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which is perfect for cruising in comfort. The odometer shows a mere 49,524 miles, which is impressively low for a car that's pushing 50 years old. If that's original mileage, it's a real find. The seller describes the condition as good, which is promising for a car of this vintage, but remember, good can be subjective. Now let's talk about what makes this Thunderbird special. The 75 model was part of the 6th generation of T-Birds, known for their massive size and luxurious appointments. We're talking about a car that's over 19 feet long and weighs in at around 2.5 tons. This isn't just a car, it's a land yacht. The silver paint could look really sharp if it's in good condition, especially with all the chrome trim these cars typically had. And while the seller doesn't mention the interior, these T-Birds were known for their plush, comfortable cabins. For $6,000, you're looking at a piece of 70s Americana that represents the peak of the bigger is better era in American car design. These Thunderbirds were built for comfort and style, with a presence on the road that's hard to match. However, I've got to be honest, the lack of detail in the seller's description leaves a lot of questions unanswered. What's the condition of the interior? How's it running? Has any restoration work been done? These are all things you'd want to know before making a decision. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. And don't forget about fuel economy. These big V8s are thirsty, but if you're looking for a comfortable cruiser with tons of style and presence, this 75 Thunderbird could be a great find. 13. We're checking out a real unique piece of American automotive history, a 1965 Chevrolet Corvair. This purple beauty is currently up for grabs at $7,950. And let me tell you, it's got some interesting features that might just catch your eye. Now, I've got to be straight with you, folks. The seller's description is pretty brief, but what they do tell us is intriguing. Let's break it down. First off, we're looking at the 500 model, which was the base trim for the Corvair in '65. Under the rear deck, yes, you heard that right, rear deck, we've got a flat 6 engine. The Corvair was famous, or perhaps infamous, for its rear-engine air-cooled design, which was pretty revolutionary for an American car at the time. This particular Corvair is sporting a 3-speed manual transmission. That's going to give you a really engaging driving experience, especially with that rear-engine layout. The odometer shows only 33,000 miles, which is impressively low for a car that's pushing 60 years old. If that's original mileage, it's a real find. The seller describes the condition as good, which is promising for a car of this vintage, but remember, good can be subjective. They've got it painted in purple, which isn't a color you see every day on a Corvair. That could make it a real head-turner at car shows. Now, I've got to be honest. The lack of detail in the seller's description leaves a lot of questions unanswered. What's the condition of the interior? How's it running? Has any restoration work been done? These are all things you'd want to know before making a decision. For $7,950, you're looking at a piece of automotive history that's not as common as your typical 60s muscle car. The Corvair has a unique place in American car culture, thanks in part to Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, which criticized its handling, though the '65 model had improvements to address these issues. Just remember, as with any classic car, be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle of this age. The rear engine layout can make some repairs more challenging, so it's worth considering if you're handy with a wrench or have a good mechanic who knows these cars. 14. Let me tell you about this fantastic find I just spotted on Craigslist, a 1959 Ford Thunderbird. This classic beauty is currently available for $15,000, which is quite a deal considering its recent appraisal at $22,200. This T-Bird is equipped with a powerful 352 V8 engine and a 4-barrel carb. It features the smooth Cruise-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive that'll make you feel like you're cruising in style. To be completely honest, this car has some mileage on it, showing 40,897 on the odometer. However, for a classic of this age, that's not unreasonable. The seller describes it as a good representation of the model for its age, which is encouraging. The Baltic blue paint with a white roof is a stunning combination, and those Kelsey Hayes 14 chrome wire wheels with knockoffs are a real eye-catcher. It's loaded with power options, steering, windows, and bucket seats. Plus, It still has the original AM radio for that authentic 50s experience. I know $15,000 is a significant investment, but for a piece of automotive history with a clean title and all these features, it's a pretty attractive deal. The fact that it runs and drives is a major plus. This Thunderbird comes with a touching backstory, being sold as part of a family trust. So you're not just getting a cool ride, but you're also helping a family honor their father's memory. If you're in the market for a classic that'll turn heads and give you that vintage American luxury experience, this '59 Thunderbird could be just what you're looking for. As always, make sure to give it a thorough inspection before finalizing the purchase. 15. We're taking a look at a 1965 Ford Falcon that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This four-door classic is powered by a 289 Ci engine and is priced at $14,000 with some extra goodies included. Now let's be real here. This Falcon isn't a pristine show car, but it's got a lot of charm and potential. The seller's been upfront about the car's condition. It's sporting its original paint and moldings, which means it's got some dents and dings, all part of its 90,000-mile history. But don't let that deter you. This Falcon has received a lot of love and upgrades over the past 4 years. The current owner has put in some serious work, replacing the engine seals and adding a bunch of new parts. We're talking LED headlights, a new air cleaner, alternator, Holley carburetor, and front disc brakes. They've also installed a new master cylinder with a proportioning valve, fresh windshield and rear window, and new weather seals all around. The interior has been spruced up too, with new floor seats and headliner done by a professional upholstery shop. One of the coolest things about this Falcon is that it comes with some uninstalled upgrades. The seller's throwing in a vintage Air AC kit and a RAB Performance Serpentine kit with AC and power steering. That's a lot of potential for the next owner to take this classic to the next level. The seller mentions that the car runs great and has a nice throaty exhaust note. It's a bit slow to start due to the carburetor and mechanical fuel pump, but that's par for the course with these older cars. Now, $14,000 might seem a bit steep for a car with some cosmetic issues, but when you factor in all the new parts and those uninstalled kits, it starts to look like a pretty fair deal. If you're not interested in the AC and Serpentine kits, you can even snag it for $10,000. Overall, this '65 Falcon seems like a solid driver with a lot of potential. It's not perfect, but it's got character and a clean title. If you're looking for a classic Ford that you can enjoy now and gradually improve over time, this could be the ticket. 16. We're looking at a 1975 Cadillac Eldorado convertible that's popped up on Craigslist for a mere $2,000. Now, let's be real here. This isn't a showroom-ready beauty, but it's got potential for the right buyer. This Eldorado is what we'd call a running project. The good news is that it runs, and according to the seller, it runs very well. That's a big plus for a car of this vintage. It's got 124,342 miles on the clock, which isn't too bad for a 48-year-old vehicle. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: condition. The seller is upfront about it being in fair condition, and they mention that the car has some rust. That's pretty common for these old land yachts, but it's something you'll need to factor into your restoration plans. On the bright side, the AC compressor works, which is a nice surprise for a car of this age. The seller also mentions having a lot of parts for it, which could be a goldmine for your restoration efforts. This Eldorado comes with a clean title, which is always a relief when dealing with older vehicles. It's an automatic transmission, as you'd expect from a luxury cruiser of this era. Look, for $2,000, you're not getting a pristine classic. This is a project car through and through. But if you've got the time, skills, and passion for bringing old cars back to life, this could be a fun challenge. These old Cadillac convertibles can be stunning when restored, and the '75 Eldorado was the last of the really big convertibles. Just remember, you're buying a project here. Be prepared for some serious work, especially with that rust. But if you're up for it, this could be your ticket to cruising in classic Cadillac style. 17. We're checking out a sweet 1973 Pontiac Le Mans that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,150. This isn't just your average Le Mans, it's been given some serious muscle car treatment. Let's start with the heart of this beast. It's packing a Chevy 454 big block engine. Yeah, you heard that right, a Chevy engine in a Pontiac. It might not be original, but it's definitely bringing the power. This power plant is paired with a 3-speed turbo 350 transmission with a shift kit, so you know it's ready to lay down some rubber. The seller's done some nice upgrades under the hood. We're talking a 4-bolt main, Lunati cam, Holley 770 Avenger carburetor, and a Wyland intake. They've also added stainless steel braided fuel lines and a 3-core aluminum radiator to keep things cool. The true dual exhaust system probably gives this Le Mans a mean growl too. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller says it runs and drives excellently with no weird noises from the suspension. It's got newer brakes and good tires, which is always a plus. With 80,000 miles on the clock, it's got some life experience, but that's not bad for a car pushing 50 years old. One of the cool things about this Le Mans is that it's got some nice creature comforts too. Power windows, power brakes, and power steering make this muscle car a bit more livable for daily use. Look, for under $10,000, you're getting a lot of muscle car for your money here. It might not be a numbers-matching collector's piece, but if you're looking for something fun to drive that'll turn heads at car shows, this Le Mans could be a great choice. Just remember, with any modified classic car, it's always a good idea to give it a thorough inspection before you buy. So, if you're in the market for an affordable muscle car that's ready to rumble, this 73 Le Mans might just be your ticket to tire-squealing V8 roaring fun. 18. We're taking a look at a real-time capsule, a 1977 Mercury Cougar XR7 that's popped up on Craigslist for $4,000. Now let me tell you, finding an original numbers-matching survivor like this is getting rarer by the day. This brown beauty is sporting a 351M V8 engine under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission, giving you that classic 70s American car experience. With only 64,297 miles on the clock, this engine has plenty of life left in it. The seller describes this Cougar as being in excellent condition, and from what they're saying, it seems to be a solid car. There are no holes in the body, just a little surface rust, which is pretty impressive for a car that's over 45 years old. It's got power everything, which was quite the luxury back in '77. Now let's be real here. It's not perfect. The sunroof isn't working and neither is the factory air conditioning. But hey, that's part of the charm with these old cars, right? A little tinkering and you could have those systems up and running again. The interior is described as being in good condition, with vinyl seats featuring cloth inserts. That's a classic 70s look that's hard to beat. One of the coolest things about this Cougar is that it's a true survivor. It hasn't been restored or modified. What you see is what rolled off the assembly line back in '77. For purists and collectors, that's a big deal. At $4,000, this Cougar represents a pretty affordable entry into classic car ownership. The seller says you can drive it while you restore it, which is a great way to enjoy your classic while you gradually bring it back to its former glory. So if you're looking for an original numbers-matching 70s cruiser that won't break the bank, this Mercury Cougar XR7 could be right up your alley. Just remember, with any classic car, it's always a good idea to give it a thorough inspection before you buy. And who knows, you might even be able to trade that old outboard motor you've got lying around. 19. We've got a 1971 Ford Mustang Mach 1 on our hands, and it's quite the project car. Currently listed on Craigslist for $8,500, this pony car has seen better days, but it's got potential for the right enthusiast. Let's get straight to the facts. This Mustang is sporting a 351 Cleveland V8 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. That's a solid powertrain combo for these cars. The seller says it runs, which is always a good start, but the carburetor needs rebuilding. So expect to get your hands dirty right off the bat. Now, I've got to be honest with you, this Mach 1 needs some serious TLC. The seller's description and photos don't sugarcoat it. This car needs significant bodywork and a fresh paint job. It's currently wearing red, but who knows what's underneath or what color it was originally. Here's where things get a bit tricky. This Mustang has a salvage title and has been assigned a new VIN by the DMV. The seller doesn't know the story behind the salvage title, which is a bit of a red flag. They believe they've identified the original VIN in one of the photos, but that's not a guarantee. The odometer shows 1,000 miles, but it's rolled over at least once, so the true mileage is anyone's guess. On the plus side, the seller mentions having a spoiler and center console that aren't shown in the photos, which could be nice additions once you get the car sorted. Look, at $8,500, this isn't a cheap project. You're looking at significant investment in time and money to get this Mach 1 back to its former glory. The salvage title and VIN situation could also make registration a headache, depending on your local laws. But here's the thing, 71 Mach 1s are desirable cars, and if you've got the skills and patience, this could be a rewarding project. Just go into it with your eyes wide open, knowing you've got a long road ahead. As always, if you're seriously considering this car, get a thorough inspection and try to learn more about its history. And maybe brush up on your state's laws regarding salvage titles and VIN changes. 20. We're checking out a real gem on Craigslist, a 1971 Chevrolet El Camino that's been given some serious hot rod treatment. This beauty is up for grabs at $13,750, and let me tell you, it's got some impressive upgrades under the hood and beyond. Let's start with the heart of this beast, a built 350 V8 engine. We're talking aluminum heads, roller valve train, and coated headers. This setup is sure to give you that muscle car rumble we all love. Paired with a 5-speed manual transmission, you're looking at a fun driving experience that'll keep you engaged on the road. The sellers put some serious thought into the performance aspects. You've got an aluminum radiator with an electric fan setup to keep things cool, a 12-bolt rear end for durability, and upgraded disc brakes, springs, shocks, and sway bars, front and rear. This El Camino isn't just about straight-line speed, it's built to handle too. Inside, you'll find an aftermarket dash gauge cluster, a newer seat, and fresh carpet. The exterior sports a new vinyl top, headliner, and visors. The bed has been armor-coated for durability, and there's even new bed chrome waiting to be installed. Now the odometer shows 386 miles, which likely indicates it's been reset since the rebuild. The paint is described as black, and from the seller's description, it seems to be in good condition overall. One thing to note, the seller's description cuts off mid-sentence, so there might be more details we're missing. It's always a good idea to ask for more information and photos before making a decision. At $13,750, this isn't a budget beater. It's priced for someone who appreciates the work that's gone into it. You're getting a classic El Camino with modern performance upgrades and a clean title. It's a turnkey hot rod that you can enjoy right away, while still having room to put your own touches on it.